get their way at the end of it. Why are people homophobic with a little sad face? This is a good one. Why do guys get erections but girls don't get anything? Nothing. Miss out completely. So in the anatomy lessons, of course, we do talk about the nerves of the glands of the penis and the nerves around the clitoris, and that they're pretty comparable. What do you do if your parents have not talked to you about sex? How do I start the conversation? So a brave person. How do you end a relationship? If you're dating someone and that person is ready to have sex and you're not ready, how do you tell them? A really important question. A lot of parents assume that their kid will come to them with that sort of question, or any of those sorts of questions. The reality is a lot of kids don't have anyone to talk to about these things, and just because they don't have anyone at home to talk about these sorts of questions doesn't mean they don't have the questions. Kids have the questions. We just don't know what questions they have. Kids see porn, for example, and they won't necessarily come and tell you that they've seen porn. We don't know exactly what's happening in every facet and aspect of their lives, even though we would really, really, really like to. So having a school program is one of those ways that kids get instruction outside the family and outside. Sometimes they're just terribly private. And in this sort of context, they can ask anything, have things answered, and it's just like, oh, I'm so relieved someone answered that question. So it's just a really good vehicle for kids to be heard and answered. Any questions about question box? All right, so one of the things that gets up people's nose sometimes is the gender part of the curriculum. There's a whole lesson typically spent on gender roles and sexual orientation, and sort of just teases out what's this, what's that definition, how does that work, how does that look, who's this, who's that in popular culture. So there's lots of discussion. Kids love talking about this stuff. It's fascinating, and it's sort of something that tends to, I know my friend, when she had her first transgender friend, she just couldn't get her head around it. You know, and it was just a wonderful sort of opportunity for us to have conversations. So sometimes this is the first time that students hear about this sort of diversity. They might hear about all sorts of other diversity, but not necessarily gender identity or sexual orientation. It's not promoted. This lesson isn't a promotion of a particular lifestyle. It's just saying, this is what's in the world, this is what you might see. This is how to ask questions of people who might be a little bit different than you, and this is what some definitions are, so you know when you hear the word what it is. It's very matter of fact. People would love probably to blame the program on, you know, maybe making it all seem so attractive that everybody is going to be coming out transgender in the next year because it's so wonderful. It's actually not approached like that at all. But it's more of an approach of tolerance and understanding. There are people who are different. They deserve to be respected and treated just as you or me, and we don't want those people bullied at school. We know that their suicide rates are double, their self-harm rates are double, and they drop out of school much quicker than typical students. So they are a community that are at risk, so we have to be at least tolerant of people who are different. That movie there is, we just show a quick clip. It's of a transgender student who has a really positive transition. And the friends at school are very supportive, and there's sort of hallway banter, and it's all very positive. I don't know whether you got to see any of the video you did. Yeah, it's a very positive sort of show. It's not heavy at all, but it's, yeah. Sort of just a bit of an intro. Any questions on the gender piece?
What's the name of the movie?
Oh, yes, it's a bit hard to see back there. Yeah, it's called Straight-Laced.
Okay.
So it's a San Francisco film, 2009, so it's pretty old. The kids don't seem to mind that. A couple of years ago they minded, but now I think it's sort of retro, and I don't think they mind that much. But You can go online and have a look at like an intro of it, but it's hard, you won't see the whole thing because they really are very tightly, it's proprietary, so they sell it. It's about $370 something. Yeah, but you can see, you could probably see enough to make a judgment as to whether it suits your family or not, just by the intro. This is the big one. This is where we're going, sir. So this is the, I'm not sure, are you going to be using the grid or the tree? Yay, the tree. The tree is so much better. So this is what the grid used to look like, and this is what it looks like now. It's one of those things that is a really difficult thing for parents to read in the curriculum and get a good sense of what actually is being taught. So in terms of sexual behaviour, a lot of kids, we do an activity. There's a line on the floor, agree at one side and disagree at another. We do this in middle school. We say, it's a values activity, agree or not agree. The statement says, oral sex is not real sex. So that's the statement that the educator reads out. There's the disagree, so oral sex is real sex. And then there's the agree, yeah, oral sex isn't real sex. About 25% of kids stand out that oral sex isn't real sex. And that's a worry, that they think that oral sex isn't real sex, that it's an option to maybe put off sexual intercourse for a little while, make somebody happy, maybe get into the popular group at a party, because the rates of sexually transmitted infections through oral sex are very high because it's not real. It's not real sex, so I don't need a condom. I'm not going to get pregnant. Why would I need a condom? So that's sort of the thing that goes through their mind. They might have pressure at a party to, oh, it's not real sex. If you do that, then they'll really like you, or whatever the, situation is. We need to define what sexual behaviour is so that kids can say, no, that's not a match with my value system. Sorry. Because if they are just left in the dark, ignorance is so much more dangerous than actually having a definition. And the definitions are really simple. They're not very exciting. It's very sort of, it's boring, isn't it? It's very straightforward. Because it's about defining it as opposed to making it sexualised. Because remember, the idea is to delay. We want them to feel the weight of sexual responsibility, and at the end of this lesson to say, oh, I didn't realise there was so much involved in being sexually active. I didn't even know that was sex in the first place. I think I'll just wait. So these very small. So what the activity is to have a look at sexual activity in the symbol of a tree. Down the bottom are things like 5 senses, values, inner feelings, thoughts, attraction, communication, trust, connection, going up the trunk. So all of these things have to be in place and solid, like the solid roots of a tree, before anything up here can take place. So for some people, this values system, they're just going to stop. Like there's not going to be any sexual behaviour because their value system says that, hey, look, for me, sex outside marriage is a no-go. So they know that because that's their value system and that's what they hold on to their anchor, like roots of a tree. For some people, they might have like a situational type of value system. So, I think that I need to be in a committed relationship, or I need to be a certain age, or they might have different thought processes. But values are a really important thing to talk with your kid so that if they are in any situation like that, they've got that immediate sense of, this is not okay for me. You can talk about age, it doesn't have to be values, sort of faith, wisdom related. You can just talk about, you know what, there's just not enough knowledge in that head of yours for you to make really good decisions. You can go the hard and fast rule if you like. But the more well-rounded the discussion you have about not being ready, the better. So that's where emotions come in, and all of that talk is about the parts of the roots. It has to be in place first. When we talk about sexual activity, of course, we talk about the age of consent being 18. So it's not even lawful for kids in California under the age of 18 to even consent to sexual activity. Now, of course, they watch teen drama, they read novels, they listen to music, they know people are having sex under the age of 18. And we don't spend a long time debating law with them, but we present the law to them. So if you want to have a discussion at home about the law and going into all that sort of stuff, fabulous. Because we simply, that would be a lesson in itself. So we haven't got the time to talk about, well, if somebody's older than, 3 years older than you and you're 14 and all those different little parts of the law, go for it if that's your thing. For us, it's important for them to know that consent can only legally happen at 18. Remember, we talk and define consent. This is sexual touching. This one's oral sex, this one's anal sex, and this one's vaginal sex. So after all those parts are in place and somebody might consent to some sort of sexual behaviour, maybe sexual touching, is there a risk of